How's everybody feeling? On a Wednesday night, it's hump day. I'm hoping that everybody out there is getting humped, doing some humping. Just not during the show, please. Don't distract me. Please don't distract me, not tonight. I've got a wonderful guest coming back, Dr. Robin McCutcheon. Been on a bunch of times, and tonight we're going to be talking about mass hysteria and how it affects all of us, and how it used to be, how it is now, because of course there is a concerted effort to make mass hysteria into a global weapon, because there's enough technology now to actually control it that way. Of course, mass hysteria has a very long history with human beings to pop up spontaneously and otherwise in local areas, isolated incidents. Not anymore. Not anymore, and we're living through it. So we're going to be talking with her about some stuff, and then moving on in the second half, taking some calls that we may not have gotten around to yesterday, some more creepy stories, and this and that and this. You know, that kind of a show tonight. Nice week moving along. Tomorrow's Thursday already. Then we have a Friday night with Timothy Alberino. We have a Saturday night chilling with the boys. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the Saturday night show is going to be early. Okay? I think it's going to start around 9:30 or 10. I'll decide. It's not going to be 10:30 though, because we're going to be off air and out of here by 11:30. Just some things. We wanted to get some stuff in and have a good time and just make a little bit of an appearance. And King is in. It's the first time he's going to see a studio in a long time, so it's going to be great to hang out with King, and we will entertain the best we can. Okay, we had a great show, Dark to Light, today with me and Tracy. You can find that at radioinfluence.com. It also features a 25-minute interview that Tracy conducted with Marjorie Taylor Greene. So there's a whole bunch to listen to in that episode. So go ahead and do it so we can get off and along on our way down the dusty trail. All right, I have a couple of birthdays, I have to say. People are wishing people birthdays, and that's very important for me to get involved with. All right, first one up is Allison, who is wishing her boyfriend, Tooz, a happy birthday. And he is a recently retired NYPD police officer, and she's a nurse. She said this, though. We couldn't spend the day together because I'm down in Florida working until Christmas, but he's a huge fan of your show and has now got me into it. That's wonderful. And that's too bad that there's one less person on the force in the city who knows who I am, because if I ever do go down there again and I get into some kind of trouble, I park in the wrong place, or I don't know what the hell happens, I have one less ally. I didn't even know I had it. So happy birthday to Tooz on a Wednesday. I also want to wish a happy birthday to Asher Murray out there. I know he's a supporter of the show. His sister Gina got in touch with me and said, you got to give him a birthday. It was just this week, or it's today, or whatever was going on. And so I want to give a shout out there. Gina Murray also sent this in. She said, Frank, I also wanted to email you for a while because when you are away, I started watching your past episodes from as far back as Rumble has saved them. Do you ever go back to listen to your past shows? I ask because I was able to start episodes from the end of September 2020, and it's pretty nuts how many things you've accurately predicted. And I know you're not sitting there in a crystal ball genuinely attempting to predict the future, but you will make comments nonchalantly of things that you think may happen or how things will pan out, and I am constantly blown away because they have come to pass. This is not the reason for my email today, but still, I wanted to let you know regardless. I've had a couple people tell me that. No, I do not watch any of the past shows. I when I finish up here at 9 o'clock, I wipe my hands of it. I put the format into the format folder so that we can do something with it at the end of the year, and then I just think about the next day. So my buddy Javi out there, I don't know how many times he texts me or DMs me on Twitter saying, hey, Frank Adamus strikes again, look. And I don't even know what the hell he's talking about sometimes. So I don't know what the hell I'm saying. Don't trust me. Unless I'm channeling. because I don't know what the hell. Just call it how you see it. Some of this stuff really isn't that hard, to be honest. So many people are only walking in one direction. All you have to do is just go through. When I was learning about all the logical fallacies, I learned that slippery slope was a logical fallacy, that you can't just assume that you're going down a certain trajectory and that one thing is going to lead to the other and all that. But I think out of all the logical fallacies on that list, slippery slope is one of those that is really actually can be given some kind of consideration here, because that's really where my predictive powers come from. Like, what are people doing? What are people not willing to consider, and what direction that's going to continue to lead us in. And that's it. That's where we are. Okay, let's go into the grab bag, shall we? First one up is from the Daily Wire. The caving commences. Netflix co-CEO backtracks after defending Dave Chappelle from woke mob. This is from Daily Wire. Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos backtracked over defending Dave Chappelle from the woke mob on Tuesday, claiming that he screwed up. Sarandos made the remarks in an interview with the Wall Street Journal in response to Netflix The Closer, which has been widely praised by many online and in reviews, with the audience scores reaching as high as 97% on the popular website Rotten Tomatoes. Chappelle triggered the far left with jokes about the trans community, defending J.K. Rowling, going after the LGBT community for trying to cancel a rapper over a comment the rapper had made. Quote, "What I should have led with in those emails was humanity," Sarandos said, as I wonder if he was wearing his GIMP costume when he wrote this. "I should have recognized the fact that a group of our employees was really hurting." Well, they need psychiatric help then. It's, my God, how fragile do you have to be? To be clear, storytelling has an impact on the real world, sometimes quite negative, Sarandos says, as he previously stated the obvious. Isn't this this is the same platform that put out that Cuties or whatever the hell it was with the twerking 8-year-olds? We have articulated to our employees that there are going to be things that you don't like. There are going to be things that you might feel are harmful, but we are trying to entertain a world with varying tastes and varying sensibilities and various beliefs. And I think this is a special was consistent with that. So, yeah, well, hey, people have to dance. That's the new thing that everybody has to do. San Francisco, interesting story out of San Francisco. San Francisco shuts down an In-N-Out burger for not enforcing a jab mandate. The city of San Francisco temporarily closed an In-N-Out fast food restaurant over the company's refusal to enforce customers to prove that they are vaccinated against the coronavirus. The San Francisco Department of Public Health closed Fisherman's Wharf In-N-Out location on October 14th after the popular burger joint did not check the vaccination status of customers, which violates an August mandate from the city requiring indoor diners to show proof of vaccination. Now, of course, whether it is a mandate from the city or not, if you had attorneys general that you can go to and sue your city or your state on a civil rights ground, regardless of whatever kind of pandemic people declare we are facing, then you would be able to have some headway. But of course, we know who sponsors all of the attorneys general races, right? We know who has taken very, very keen interest in races like attorney general in places like California and cities and district attorneys races and all that stuff. All right, what else? Okay, so the San Francisco department, they shut it down. In-N-Out, which operates 358 locations across the western United States, is owned by a devout Christian, Lindsay Snyder, and is well known for including Bible verses at the bottom of soda and milkshake cups. I never saw those. I've only eaten there a couple of times. Not very impressed. Not bad, but not very impressed. I guess I have to grow up with it. Our store properly and clearly posted signage to communicate local vaccination requirements. In-N-Out Burger's chief legal and business officer, Arnie Wensinger, said in a statement to Fox News. After closing our restaurant, local regulators informed us that our restaurant associates must actively intervene by demanding proof of vaccination and photo identification from every customer, and then act as enforcement personnel by barring entry for any customer without proper documentation. We refuse to become the vaccination police for any government, Wensinger declared, slamming the San Francisco Department of Health's requirements as unreasonable, invasive, and unsafe, and accusing the city of asking restaurants to segregate customers based on vaccine documentation, which is exactly what it is. So good on them, and I actually have a lot more respect for In-N-Out Burger. I might try it again one day. I just may. You know, I've never had Chick-fil-A. Not once. Not once. Here's a story from louderwithcrowder.com. I think this is the first time I've ever covered a story from louderwithcrowder.com, but I just couldn't help myself. Brian Stelter's show stinks so much it's losing to Golden Girls reruns in the ratings. Now, Golden Girls are amazing. The Golden Girls reruns, it's a great show. So no shame in losing to them, Brian, but I'm sure he is losing to somebody who is very shameful. Let's see here. Stelter, who, if he was on Golden Girls, would be Blanche's brother, is such a turn-off to the important 25 to 54 demographic. Viewers would rather watch B. Arthur play a snarky old broad or watch Betty White do her best empty-headed Joe Biden impersonation. It's not just Golden Girls reruns either. According to PM, Spudley, that I guess they're talking Spudley, the potato boy, also loses to Paw Patrol, to the amusement of my nephew. Reruns of The Office, well, I mean, of course. You know how many people are watching? There are entire channels on television that are dedicated to reruns of The Office and Friends. They say you can't. Friends still nets their writers and the network, I think NBC, over $1 billion a year. It's still enormous. So you can't really fault him. Brian Stelter has a terrible show, but he's going to compete with a channel that plays Office reruns all day. He would be a lot of people would be crushed. He's also being crushed by Peppa Pig. I think that is a cartoon pig for children. And something called Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. The Mormons have a Real Housewives now? I didn't know that. Somewhere in New York City, Stelter is crying into his breakfast cheesecake. Not the first entire cheesecake he eats every morning. This is the second cheesecake that he has for breakfast dessert. Okay. Oh, this is written very, very funnily. This is very funnily written. So just wanted to put that out there. And also, this should bring a little bit of levity to the evening. Here is a amazing bit of footage from Chicago, because the Chicago WNBA team has won the championship, and they're having their ticker tape parade. And I just wanted to show you the raucous scene down there in Chi-Town. Watch this. So if you're on podcast and you're wondering what's happening, nothing. It's just the wind. That's just the wind in one person going, yay. So it's just the wind there. And thank God for that police, that police officer that revved the siren real quick, because then, I mean, then it would have been a complete morgue. Like, oh, I saw people commenting actually here. This guy, King Noah, said, I feel bad for them. I only found out that we had a team last week when they made it to the finals. The league needs to do a better job to put spotlight on their league. The WNBA is decades old. No one gives a shit is the problem. This is we have an economic professor coming on here tonight. All right, and Professor Robin McCutcheon is a very, very good person to talk to when you want to explain why, perhaps, why women's soccer and women's anything really doesn't do well outside of some, varsity leagues in college on, D1 teams and universities and stuff like that. College sports are very big, but professionally, it just doesn't work, and it's a market thing. It's demand. It's what people don't. It's what people want. It's just sorry. They need to do a better job putting a spotlight on their league. Decades they've been around. Think they're half-assing it on purpose? Look what they're working with. Hate to put it that way, but everybody wants to keep just putting their blinders on and pretending otherwise. That's all for right now. When we come back, we're going to have a nice little talk about mass hysteria. I'm going to go through time for a little bit before Robin McCutcheon comes on and talk about instances of mass hysteria all throughout history, going back to the Middle Ages. So don't go anywhere. It's going to be a fun night. Thank you so much for showing up.
Sorry, Franklies. The rest of the show is available at quitefrankly.tv. So head to DLive, Twitch, or pill.net, but you can't stay here, all right? Quitefrankly.tv is the place to catch the latest episode, the latest blog entries, links to become a sponsor. If you want to buy a t-shirt or something, visit the merch store. Quite Frankly streams live weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, wherever you get your podcast. Now, head to quitefrankly.tv, and we'll see you there.
You wanted to overrun us and poison us and take our families and kill us? You will die, not us!
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!
Yes, all right, so welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. As always, you know, the greatest thing that you can do to help me out over here is to sponsor me through the social media. Whatever the hell you're watching on, whatever you use every day, even if it's just text messaging and email, share it with friends that you know will appreciate it and get them hooked. Get them hooked. Would be wonderful to share these evenings with you and everybody you know, and we will overcome all else in the process. So thank you so much for joining me here tonight. You know, you can share, you can become a nightly sponsor by sending over a super chat with a question or a shout out or whatever the hell, and those foxhole gold pills, the fox pills as I call them. Everybody always talks about horse pills. Oh man, they gave me a damn horse pill. What about the fox pill? That's what we have. So thank you all so much for being a part of this. Let's get into the opening, though. Now, first thing I want to talk about is Alex Berenson going on Joe Rogan's show, because this has everything to do with mass hysteria, because we're living through something, a planetary sense of mass hysteria, at least for a lot of people. Others have been resistant to it. But it all has to do with this virus. Alex Berenson tells Joe Rogan over 70% of COVID-19 deaths in England were fully vaccinated in September. This is from Kanikoa, the Great's newsletter on Substack. In a podcast episode released Tuesday, New York Times bestselling author Alex Berenson, who was permanently suspended from Twitter, appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience to discuss the latest reports on the COVID vaccine out of the UK. It's only a minute 52. Let's listen to it.
And the best data we have comes out of the UK and Israel. And I have to keep saying this to people because they almost don't believe it. In the UK, 70+% of the people who die now from COVID are fully vaccinated. And in Israel, that was
70%?
70%. 7 in 10 of the people. I'm going to keep saying it because nobody believes it, but the numbers are there in the government documents, okay? They're not a secret. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not somebody saying, oh, I heard this from my cousin. It's in British government documents from the UK, Public Health England. If you Google variants of concern, UK technical briefing.
Here it is.
Okay. So these are deaths. Okay. So now, second dose more than 14 days above specimen date, before specimen date. These are people who have died, fully vaccinated people who have died. There were 1,270 fully vaccinated people who died out of 1,500 in the over 80 category.
But this is under 14 days before specimen
No.
date?
Over. Second dose greater than 14 days means I am fully vaccinated by anybody's definition.
Okay.
Not vaccinated, it says, when it says second dose before 14 days or more than 14 days, what it should say is fully vaccinated. But what I want everyone to see is that the vast majority of people in Britain who died in September were fully vaccinated. 1,270 out of 1,500 were fully vaccinated. 607 of the 70-year-olds out of 800 were fully vaccinated. 258 out of the 411 60-year-olds, they were almost all fully vaccinated.
And let's and remember, as he's talking about this stuff, that 14-day window is very statistically important as well, because as we have said, that even though this is a piece that people are trying to avoid talking about even more, that about a significant portion of those who die immediately after getting the shot, like within days, the heart inflammation, the brain inflammation, all these other things, the blood clots, thrombosis, everything that we have seen popped up, various strange deaths with otherwise very healthy people, young people especially. You're not considered vaccinated until 14 days after, and a significant portion of those deaths that occur within that time frame are within that time frame of 14 days after getting the shot. So you say 70% that are accounted for right now. That's 70% of an already padded and insulated number that has been segregated from what the hell's going on within that 14-day period after injection. So it must be some kind of an unbelievable reality. I don't know how anybody would ever uncover it, how it could be established or confirmed, but there must be some unbelievable reality as to how many people are already dead. There must be some kind of a cover-up that is just unreal. And yet this is driving hysterics. This is what is driving the hysterics, but in the opposite direction. There is something that should get people a little bit nervous and hysterical right now, and it's the fact that there's no way to really rip down the curtain and see what's going on, who's doing what, and to hold people accountable for what may be the worst string of crimes against humanity ever perpetrated in our species' history. And yet the hysterics are driven in the other way because they own most of the media and all the medical establishment and the educational establishment and everything else. It's completely turned around and flipped the other way, where we have this phony nonsense about a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and that hysteria, and it is mass hysteria. We see it. We see how it takes control of people. We see what they're doing to each other, how they conduct themselves in business settings, in social settings. You know, it's It's behind what's driving these illegal mandates, the social isolation, the censorship, the ultimate reconfiguration of the earth, which is what they've been saying the entire time. So I brought up a list of mass hysteria cases. Since we have a few more minutes until we get in touch with Robin McCutcheon. And here it is. This is from findzebra.com. In sociology and psychology, mass hysteria is also known as mass psychogenic illness, collective hysteria, group hysteria, or collective obsessional behavior. It's a phenomenon that transmits collective illusions of threats, whether real or imaginary, through a population and society as a result of rumors and fear. In medicine, the term is used to describe the spontaneous manifestation or production of chemicals in the body of the same or similar hysterical physical symptoms by more than one person. A common type of mass hysteria occurs when a group of people believes that it is suffering from a similar disease or ailment, sometimes referred to as a mass psychogenic illness or epidemic hysteria. Now, it goes back as far as written history. To the Middle Ages is what I can find here. Maybe there's more, but I found so much in this one spot, I figured I'm just going to grab this and we'll just go with that. I'm going to read through it. We'll just pick around. I know we don't have all the time in the world before I call up Professor McCutcheon, but still, I think this is fun. In the Middle Ages, according to an account which was written by an author in 1784, a nun who lived in a German convent in the 1400s began to bite her companions. The behavior soon spread throughout other convents in Germany, Holland, and Italy, just nuns biting each other. According to an 1844 book which cited an unnamed medical textbook, a nun, again with the nuns, who lived in French convent during an unspecified time in the Middle Ages inexplicably began to meow like a cat, shortly leading other nuns in the convent to meow as well. Eventually, all of the nuns in the convent would meow together for a certain period of time every day, leaving the surrounding community astonished. This did not stop until the police threatened to whip the nuns. Okay? If you need some kind of a modern-day relation to this, think of Keith Olbermann. Think of the crazy that's going on behind Keith Olbermann's eyes. He is a modern-day meowing nun who lives in a Central Park high-rise instead of a convent. Now we go to the 1500s to the 1800s. Let's see here. There's a dancing plague. Did you know about this? There was a dancing plague of 1518. It was the case of dancing mania that occurred in Strasbourg, Alsace, then part of the Holy Roman Empire. And in July of 1518, that's when it happened, numerous people took to dancing for days. In modern day, this would become Burning Man. The Irish Fright took place in England and parts of Wales in December of 1688 during the Glorious Revolution. False reports that the Irish soldiers were burning and massacring English towns prompted a mass panic in at least 19 countries, with thousands of people arming themselves and preparing to resist non-existent groups of marauding Irishmen. Well, I am sure now inside of this list somewhere is going to be Orson Welles, even though it wasn't really as bad of a panic as you think, with the War of the Worlds. Although on the 30th of October, which is a Saturday this year, I will be playing. Last year, it was the first time that we did a test stream that would of what would later be known, be the network. A test stream from my kitchen, from my laptop. I played War of the Worlds, the original broadcast War of the Worlds. And maybe I can find a way to get that in today, and also find this really great James Corbett episode called How to Fake an Alien Invasion. It's a wonderful episode that James Corbett did at the Corbett Report. If you haven't heard it before, listen to it. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to find a way to download it and maybe ask some permission to put it up there too, so we can make it a little bit more of a celebratory. It's really awesome. But either way, we'll get back to that. Let's see. The Salem witch trials. We'll talk about that a little bit here tonight. because I know Robin will like to open up with that, just at least the basics about it. But here you have it. In Colonial, Massachusetts, adolescent girls Abigail Williams, Betty Paris, Ann Putnam Jr., and Elizabeth Hubbard began to have fits that were described by a minister as beyond the power of epileptic fits or natural disease to affect. The events resulted in the Salem witch trials, a series of hearings which resulted in the execution of 20 citizens, I believe over 200 accusations made, though, 20 executions, and the death of 5 other citizens of Salem Village, Massachusetts, present-day Danvers, Massachusetts, and nearby towns who were accused of practicing witchcraft. The episode is one of America's most notorious cases of mass hysteria and has been used in political rhetoric and popular literature as a vivid cautionary tale about the dangers of isolationism, religious extremism, false accusations, and lapses in due process. Well, we're living through all that right now, but the people who have taken on the media and everything that goes along with it, like I said, they've twisted things around and diverted you away from the real problem. Let's go into the 1800s. There was Spring-Heeled Jack. What the hell is that? It doesn't say anything. Spring-Heeled Jack, England, started in 1837. I don't know. The Halifax Slasher. In 1938, the Halifax Slasher was named and given to the supposed attacker of residents, mostly women, in the town of Halifax, England. In November of 1938, the week-long scare began after 2 women claimed to have been attacked by a mysterious man with a mallet and bright buckles on his shoes. Further reports of attacks by a man wielding a knife or razor followed. The situation became so serious that Scotland Yard was called in to assist the Halifax police. On November 29th, one of the alleged victims admitted that he had inflicted the damage upon himself for attention. Oh, well, I would have to say that the desecrating of one's own church and writing, hanging of nooses and pretending to lynch yourself and scribbling swastikas all over yourself. I think we're seeing that right now. You see, there is really nothing different between us now and, of course, everybody back in the 1500s. The style has changed, clothing has changed, but we're still pretty nuts and very easily duped. So with that, let's call up Robin McCutcheon. First, I have a little bit of her bio here. Dr. Robin McCutcheon is an associate professor of economics at the Department of Finance, Economics, and International Business at the Lewis College of Business and Marshall University. Her favorite topics in economics to teach are principles of micro and macroeconomics, comparative economic systems, history of thought. In the history of thought, Dr. McCutcheon's research interests include the macroeconomy, the stock market and stock pricing, money and banking, demographics, and long-run trends. She has recently discovered an interest in understanding the unintended consequences of public policy and being able to predict with accuracy the outcomes of policy actions in the broad economy, stock market, and particular industries. You see, that's a great way to start off because I already have a question for her. Calling her now. Hello, Robin. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Frank. Oh, I can't figure out how to get my camera on. Hold on. Let me see if I can.
Well, you're coming in loud and clear, so
yay.
One way or another. Oh, there you are. It's so great to have you on again. And of course, I have to readjust you on the screen because this is just the way it is over here. But hey, okay. I'm reading your bio over here, and it's of course it just triggers something in me that I want to bring up. There is always something that you need. Me as a personal trainer, I always say that personal training. Not everybody really needs a personal trainer. A lot of what we do is pretty common sense, and you can figure it out on your own. But there is so much more psychological about personal training. The relationships, the way to motivate people, people's tendencies, it's all there with your discipline. I mean, psychology, you are pretty much a psychologist as well. You have to. I mean, the human behavior and decision making is what makes economic laws work.
Well, that's true. We do, as economists, we do look at human behavior, and we try to make we try to make assumptions based on what we see, and thus we, using the Socratic method, which you and I have talked about in past interviews, we use that plus the scientific method to build a model using data that we can see and measure to build a crystal ball of sorts so that we can make a forecast or a prediction. And then, of course, based on what our forecast is, we have to go and look to see, is that fairly close to what we are observing in reality? Because the only place that we're living is in reality. So if our forecast is very, very close to where reality is, then we know that the questions that we asked, the assumptions that we made, the data that we gathered, the model that we used is an accurate model, and we want to keep that one. However, sometimes you ask questions, you make assumptions, you gather data, and the results that you get are very, very far away from what reality is showing us. And I've heard economists say, well, we just didn't get the right data. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. Perhaps maybe your assumptions were wrong, because most of the time, everything comes from your assumptions. So if your model is off, if it's incorrect, if it doesn't accurately predict what you're seeing in reality, then you probably should go back and revisit those original premises.
Well, I would think that explains mainstream political polling now too. You know, although aside from people who have really slanted assumptions, there's also a psychological operation that goes into really stuffing and exaggerating these poll numbers to try to give some encouragement to a side that they want to win, to discourage the side that they don't want to win, or to lay the groundwork for a steal that would make it would make a steal look more legitimate by saying, hey, well, we told you our guy was going to win the whole time. Right. So yeah, but you know, as far as forecasts go, and how off the tracks of reality we may be at the moment, tell me a little bit about, how about you just start talking a little bit about where we are now compared to, let's say, Salem in the 17th century, and give us a little bit of a forecast where you see us all going.
Well, I think that your introduction was very good, because you basically said, as humans, we really haven't changed our behavior that much. Our clothes have changed, our places where we live have changed, our technology has changed, but as far as being creatures of a herd, that really hasn't changed that much. We can learn some things from Salem, and I have to say, for your audience, I am not a psychologist. I did not study psychology. So I know nothing about that particular discipline, but I can notice some things that are similar to what went on. So, for instance, you told us about the 3 young people that came down with certain fits. Well, can you imagine, if your audience will pretend with me to transport ourselves back 400 years, the kind of community that we would be living in would be quite rural. I don't know that Danbridge or Salem was isolated, but I know there were quite a number of families that lived there. But what I did notice about Salem was that all of their information was coming from one source. And that source had the moral high ground, right? They were all Puritans of some offshoot of Christianity. Their internet didn't work very well. Their cell phones weren't really that good. So they didn't get information from what we would call the outside world in a timely manner. So what you see is a village of people. All of their information comes from one place, one source. And when these 3 young people start showing fits, because their knowledge of medicine is not advanced, they immediately go to whatever it is that they do know, which is, it's got to be witchcraft. It's got to be Satan taking over these children. And immediately, or nearly immediately. Within a few months, they start searching out the source of this particular crime. Now, that's kind of similar to what happened last year. Do you remember when we talked the week after George Floyd died and the riots had just started going great guns? Well, if you think about